मल्लाडू टीवी, न्यूज गांव से, संवाद सरोकार न्यूज, organ donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to bring to you the current topics as well as the impact of COVID-19. And today we are going to discuss a very, very important topic, which is very, very current topic, for which everybody wants to know what is the status. That the topic is reopening of colleges and universities. But before that, I would like to inform you that today India is celebrating National Small Industry Day. National Small Industry Day is observed on 30th August annually. Almost 40% of the gross output of the products in India is supplying by small scale industries. Small scale industry plays an important role in Indian development. In the context of this, Indian government announced a policy for supporting small scale industry on 30th of August 2000. Further, they decided to celebrate National Small Industry Day or National Industrial Day on 30th August annually. And I am sure because this time everyone is suffering because of the coronavirus, but the government has declared a 20 lakhs crore project package, stimulus package, especially the 3 lakhs crore stimulus package for MSMEs. And that package will give some help to the small scale industry. Otherwise, everyone is suffering very badly. We hope for the best to all of them. Now, I would like to come to our topic, and that is the reopening of colleges and universities. Your college education is a key moment in life. It has been more than 6 months since schools and colleges were closed in India to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus. While students and teachers did shift to virtual classrooms, the digital divide in rural and urban cities has highlighted that complete reliance on online education is not a sustainable solution for India, at least for now. Yesterday, unloading 4 guidelines were declared by Government of India. As for colleges, the higher educational institutions only for research scholars and postgraduate students of the technical and professional programs requiring lab and experimental work would be permitted to open. However, containment zones would continue to be under strict lockdown till September 30th. Skill or entrepreneurship training will be allowed in National Skill Training Institute and Industrial Training Institutes, ITIs. All these are subject to the provisions and SOP as issued by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now, to discuss this point today, the reopening of colleges and universities, we have a very, very highly qualified panel with us. I would like to introduce my first guest, and he is Professor Dr. P. Subramania. Professor Dr. P. Subramania is the Vice Chancellor of Mangalore University. Dr. Subramania is having more than 3 decades of experience in teaching, research, and administration. He did his MCom from Mangalore University in 1982, securing first rank with gold medal. Dr. Subramania obtained PhD degree from Mangalore University in 1992 in the area of consumer behavior. He worked as professor, trainer, and consultant. He published 46 research papers in national and international journals of repute. He did postdoctoral research at Nottingham Business School, Nottingham Trent University, England, on HRD policies and practices. He also did a cross-national study of India and Britain under the Commonwealth Fellowship Scheme during 2001-2. He received an international award entitled eLearn International Award 2003 from Scotland, UK for his best research paper on trends and status of corporate e-learning and Indian experience. He also received the prestigious Devang Mehta National Award for Best Teacher in Human Resource Management in November 2009. He is down to earth, ready to listen and eager to implement. Welcome, Dr. Subramania on our show. Professor Dr. Subramania, today still, although the government of India has announced the Unlock 4 yesterday, but still the conditions for the reopening of colleges are not clear. What we understood, some classes or the research classes and others will be opened from 21st of September. Some will not be opened. And the SOP, which has been issued by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, has to strictly be adhered. Now, we would like to know from you the reopening of colleges and universities. Professor P. Dr. Subramania, please.
Yeah. Good morning to all fellow panelists. As you have rightly pointed out, Mr. Lal Goel ji, even as per the unlock guidelines 4.0, uncertainty prevails about the reopening of schools, colleges, and universities. Anyway, coming back to the reopening of colleges and universities, because we will be dealing with the grown-up students, the point is, all these schools, colleges, and universities were down since March 16. We are very sure. So many activities have been resumed since then under the phase-wise upliftment of the lockdown. But I would like to bring to your kind notice that the schools, colleges, and universities remain closed, affecting the studies of students across the country. Even the preparations for reopening of schools, colleges, and universities vary across the country. It varies from different to different states. Studies of students across the country. Since then, students have been relying on online classes or virtual classroom experiments and all those things. And people have raised a lot of concern about the effectiveness of online teaching and learning processes, particularly in the remote part of the rural areas, where we do not have the required or the requisite infrastructural facilities. Therefore, at times, that entire experiment had become nothing short of a mockery. Then college and university examinations, particularly for the terminal semester, are scheduled in September 2020, particularly in Karnataka state. And we have to strictly follow the guidelines for Unlock 4.0. And majority of the parents are not in favor of sending their children to schools, and sometimes even to the colleges and universities at a time when India is witnessing the highest daily number of COVID cases in the world. As per the yesterday's statistics, we know it. Teachers and staff have been asked to join the duty from September in most of the states because they are paid UGC salary and other things. They have to be available for making certain preparations for reopening of colleges and universities, particularly in the month of October or so. Waiting for the guidelines from the central government on conducting offline classes is certainly required, because we cannot introduce our own guidelines. We have to strictly adhere to COVID-19 SOP issued from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And therefore, whether the question is, are we preparing ourselves to face several unforeseen contingencies if we reopen our colleges and universities, because September will be all right for online teaching learning process. And hopefully we will introduce offline classes from October onwards if everything settles down. And if the guidelines help us to do that. But preparations related to COVID-19 safety measures are underway in most of the colleges and universities, because we should never put the cart before the horse. We have to create conducive and congenial atmosphere, ensuring health, safety, and hygiene of the students. Therefore, India is getting ready for the final unlock or unlock 4, which will begin from September 1. One of the sectors severely affected by the pandemic is education sector. Not only were exam schedules disrupted, but schools have remained shut since March 2020, as I already highlighted. Opening of colleges and universities can hike the case of COVID-19 in the country. So this may not be a misapprehension, it could be the right apprehension. Then the question is the important question ringing in the minds of the parents, the students, the faculty, the staff, the government, everybody, even a man on the street is, when does school reopen in India? Therefore, it has become a common question. Even the opinion polls, we must have noticed that 75% of the Indian students believe that colleges and universities are risking the lives of students if they reopen now. But still, on the other hand, there is a kind of self-contradiction here. Another 71% of the students feel that reopening them is vital for the economy and society, because we cannot confine ourselves to homebound isolation for a very long period of time. Therefore, we are caught up with what you call catch-22 situation, the kind of between the devil and deep sea. COVID-19 has raised concerns about India's readiness when it comes to delivering online education. Therefore, offline education will have to be the best possible alternative. But it may happen only in the month of October and thereafter. So it means only 64 students think that colleges and universities were prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic in India. Therefore, we have to focus on the preparations to be carried out, and to what extent these preparations will be proper and adequate, and when our preparations will be declared unethical or insufficient or inadequate. How do we draw the line of demarcation between adequacy and inadequacy? What are the adequacy norms for undertaking certain preparatory norms before inviting students to the campus? The point is, there is a growing need for digital skills, practical knowledge, and skills that can make students workplace ready. Because of the COVID-19 and also post-COVID-19 scenario, college should be reopened in blended mode. That is what the people say. The pulse reads like that. Then we are very sure, that is our inner conviction, that pandemic is not going to end, but life should continue. This is the punchline here. College and university students are matured enough to decide whether they want offline or online classes. So they demand what they call, choice to be given to them. Those who are willing to sit at home and log on to online program, let them do it. And those who are prepared, or those who are having courage, confidence, and conviction to physically attend the classes for offline program, they will attend. So some of the students demand this kind of option to be given, because college and university students are matured enough to take that kind of decision. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare will issue SOPs, and we have to ensure strict implementation of COVID-19 guidelines. That is what here. Other things are like the question is, ethical issues and dilemmas are also there whenever we think in terms of reopening colleges and universities at this moment of crisis, where India is witnessing huge number of COVID-19 cases. That is what I wanted to say in my opening remarks.
Thank you, Professor Dr. P. Subramania, for giving your opening remarks. And Dr. Subramania is very clear, and he said that the online education, the virtual education, which has started in India, especially in the rural area, it has become a mockery because of the lack of infrastructure. And he says that unless the offline education will not start, the education imparting to the students will not be proper. And he also added that there are surveys has been done, and some survey says that the students wants online, somebody says no offline, someone is very confident to come to the colleges, someone says no, please don't open the colleges. So contradiction are on, still no clarity is there. And even after the unlock 4, uncertainty is still prevailing, whether the universities or the colleges are going to open, how they are going to open, because the SOP yet to be received by the college and universities from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And after going through the SOP, then only it will be decided how it has to be done. But the teachers and the other staff were called to the colleges to be prepared from 1st of September, so that they can start preparing for the session, which is likely to start from October or thereafter. So that is as far as Dr. Subramania says. And he says that until unless we will not conquer, or we will not have the control on the coronavirus, which is increasing day by day, and Dr. Subramania has also mentioned that yesterday figures we are the highest in the world, the number of coronavirus new positive cases. So in that scenario, is it possible to start the school or colleges, although the education sector has been badly hit because all the colleges and schools are closed from March onwards? So he says that it has to be decided, and morally, ethically, as well as how to implement, everything has to be decided after we will receive the SOPs. Thank you, Professor Dr. P. Subramania, for giving your views about the reopening of colleges and universities. Now I would like to go to our next panelist. He is Professor Kamlesh Mishra. Professor Mishra is the Vice Chancellor of Rishi Hood University, Sonipat. Professor Mishra graduated with postgraduate degree in economics from Allahabad University. He did his PhD from Northeastern University, Boston. He taught there as lecturer until 1990. He did his advanced training in financial management of local and regional governments from Harvard Institute for International Development, Harvard University, Cambridge, USA, under an USAID funding. He served as an economist at the Center for Social and Urban Research, Pittsburgh University from 1990 to 94. Thereafter, he returned to India to join as SDFC Associate Professor at the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, New Delhi. As member of the NIPFP team, he was the technical advisor to the first Punjab State Finance Commission. Professor Mishra served as the director of the Institute for Integrated Learning in Management, New Delhi from 1996 to March 2000. He was the founding director of Institute for International Management and Technology from 2000 to 2008. He was director of GD Goenka World Institute, Gurgaon until September 2010. He was the founding vice chancellor of Aura University, Surat. He was the vice chancellor of Ansal University, Gurgaon. He is credited with successfully running the first fully delivered foreign degree program in India. He has, to his credit, the establishment of 3 of the most successful foreign universities: Bradford University, Oxford Brookes University, and Lancaster University collaborations in India. Dr. Mishra is author of 6 books and has written over 50 papers in referred journals. Welcome, Professor Mishra, on our show. Professor Mishra, please unmute yourself. You have heard what Professor Dr. P. Subramania has mentioned. And Professor Dr. P. Subramania mentioned that although the Unlock 4 guidelines have come, but uncertainty is prevailing because the first thing is the SOP from Ministry of Family and Health Welfare has not yet received, as well as still there is a dilemma how to open it, because the students, many of the students want to start coming to the colleges, but many of them are still afraid about the coronavirus. And he says the virtual classes were not that successful, especially in the rural area, because of the lack of infrastructure. Now, we would like to know from you the reopening of colleges and universities. Professor Kamlesh Mishra, please.
Thank you, Dr. Goel. Thank you so much. Let me first start by saying that I think what we are going through is something that happens once in a century. It's not something that happens every day. Therefore, it is not possible for anybody to be ready for something. These are unexpected events. So businesses or colleges, universities, nobody would have been ready for something like this to happen. Having said that, I think my perception is that there are a number of issues that are creating a problem. One is the urban-rural divide itself is a major problem. Even if we were to say that today, let's go with online. One of the problems that we have is that the rural colleges and universities do not have the infrastructure that is required because of the digital divide that is there in this country. Therefore, a large number of students are going to miss out on that opportunity. So wherever when we start thinking about level playing field for all students, whether they come from rural areas, from poor families or rich families or urban areas, they should have more or less the same opportunities. So we would not be able to do that given our current infrastructure if we decide to go online. If you look at just the urban sector, I think we are doing pretty well in terms of our ability to reach out to the students. However, we still have a problem in that area also. We need to understand that we are delivering online for the first time. No institution has had that kind of an experience of delivering programs online, although there have been some experiments in different places. But most faculty never had the experience of delivering. Right? So we are basically evolving right now. We are experimenting, we are trying to adapt to it, because online is not just going on Google Meet and delivering a lecture. It is about having the whole variety of content that is formatted in a way that it can be delivered online. It's not just the person who is talking. So, I think that's a critical issue. But I would say that at this point, there are a lot of universities, especially in the private sector, which have already started their delivery online. And it's happening in urban areas. For example, if you look at Delhi NCR, there will be a number of private universities that are already delivering. And they are, from September 1st, they will be starting their full classes online. We may have, because many of the private universities are not waiting for the government guidelines per se. I think they have more or less decided that this year is going to be an online delivery. And I think that even IITs have almost decided that it's going to be online delivery. So if we have decided that it's going to be online delivery, then why can't we start on September 1st in urban areas? Only issue is that what do we do with those that are not reachable, which are the rural masses. My perception is that we should not even think about face-to-face delivery before January. So, because see, please remember that the government will always tell you on shift its deadlines in installments. They will never do it that, okay, this year we are not going to do it. It will start only next year. They will keep moving the goalpost every month, right? And that's what you can see from last so many days. So I think I'm not expecting face-to-face delivery before January at all. It is also possible that we may not have face-to-face delivery during this academic year, and which is more likely. So it is possible that face-to-face delivery will eventually happen from next academic year. And so whoever it is possible to reach out, it is for the government now to find a way to provide that kind of online facility to students who are in the rural areas. Now, if that is not possible, we have to find out what alternatives are there and how it can be done. But I feel that a lot of parents are very, very skeptical about sending their children to schools and colleges. But at the same time, they also have very unreasonable expectations that they should not lose a year also. So these two things probably are very difficult to happen at the same time. My initial reaction was, when we were hit with the pandemic, was that we should declare it a 0 year. Let's not worry about it. At the end of the day, a year in the life of a 16-year or 17-year-old is not a big deal. I think their health is more important, and we could have taken that decision that we will declare this as a 0 year. But however, we did not do it. Right? So at this point, I would suggest that wherever online is possible, we should go. Private universities, many of them have already finished their admissions, and the 1st September their classes are going to start online. But I'm still very, very concerned about the government schools and government colleges in rural and semi-urban areas, which have a lot of problems. We don't have the kind of reach that is required. Only 11% of the rural masses that need to get this kind of education have access to any kind of a device that can be used. So how are they going to do it? Many families have only one device, but there are four people who are going to school or college. How do we do that? So I think there are major issues that we need to think about. As far as opening, what we call as the soft opening, that without opening the schools and colleges for the students, should we have faculty and staff coming in? I think gradually that momentum has to start, because we have to come back. Even if we have to deliver, we need to start planning how it needs to be done, and how we will convert all those content and curriculum into an online format. So that's what I would think, that we can't rush into it. We have major issues, and unfortunately, Dr. Goel, we don't have answers to many of these questions, because providing bandwidth in rural areas is not something we can do overnight, right? But can we do something as to incorporate satellite communication as a mechanism, which used to be done before? Probably government would be in a better position to see if we can do something like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Mishra, for giving your views. And according to Professor Mishra, there is a urban and rural divide, because the online education, which is already on or going to on from 1st of September by the private universities, he says the problem is that the rural area, only 11% the population who are going to be the students, they have the devices, and many houses there are four persons to use that device, and there is only one device. So it is not possible. Plus the infrastructure is also very bad, and it cannot be improved overnight. And he says the government has to take a decision drastically about how they are going to provide the infrastructure. And he has also mentioned one thing. According to him, the offline education is not possible before January. And even he says it may not be possible in this academic year. So he says the government should have declared it as a 0 year, which many countries, I think the universities have done, declared their 0 year. But he says the government is changing the goalpost every time. They are not announcing clear-cut decision that whether the colleges will open or not, because now again this have been deferred till 30th of October, and again it will be in the unlockdown for 5, when we will come to know what is the status of the colleges. But he says that the government can do it, although the private universities have already started their admission, rather they have completed their admissions, and they are all set to start their online education for urban areas from 1st of September, he says, especially in the NCR region, the Delhi region. But he says what is going to happen to the government colleges, all those colleges or universities who are situated in the rural area, that is a matter of concern. And he says that it is only possible if government will take a firm decision and take a decision whether they want to declare it a 0 year, or if they want to open, how they want to open, because many of the students have the concerns of the health concern, and because this is not in the hand of anyone, it has to be decided on those grounds. Thank you, Professor Mishra, for giving your views about the reopening of colleges and universities. Now I would like to go to the next guest. Our next guest is Mr. Nirmal Singh. Mr. Nirmal Singh is the Vice President of UP Self-Finance College Association. Mr. Singh is founder of Saraswati College of Professional Studies, Ghaziabad, UP, which is a NAAC accredited college. Authored and presented many technical papers in India and abroad. Received Business Sphere Award from Government of India in 2006. Mr. Singh was the chairman of Goodwill Mission Committee from 2014 to 2016 of Indian Council for International Cooperation, New Delhi. Welcome, Mr. Singh, to our show. Please unmute yourself. Mr. Singh, you have heard what our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. P. Subramania mentioned, as well as Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Kamlesh Mishra has mentioned. And both have mentioned one thing very clearly, that uncertainty is there. No one is clear what is going to happen. According to Professor Dr. P. Subramania, still we are not knowing, we are not clear what is going to happen, whether we are going to start from October or afterwards. And he says that the rural experience of the online education is totally almost failed because of the infrastructure which are not there in the rural area. And he says that until unless we have that level playing field, we cannot start online fully. And offline, for offline, until unless we will not have the SOP from the Ministry of Health and Finance, we cannot start immediately. And we have to see how we will be able to adhere that SOP, because it's a question of the life of a student and the teachers, of course. Then what Professor Kamlesh Mishra said, he said that according to him, it might be January or it might be the full year of this academic year, there will be no offline classes. And he says the government should have declared it as a 0 year. But he says because there is lots of difference, divide between urban and rural, it is unjust to start the online education fully, but private universities have no other no other solution. So they are starting, they have already completed their admissions, or they are doing the admissions, and they are starting the online education from 1st of September for the urban area. And he says, but it will not be fit for the rural area. And he's also worried about those colleges, government colleges, universities, or those universities who are situated in rural area, because according to him, the infrastructure is very poor. And he says the government has to come and take a decision, drastically decision, either provide the satellites so that at least the infrastructure or the internet facilities in the rural area should be enough. Although he says that only 11% of the population, student population, is having device. What about the other 89%? So all those questions are, the challenges are there. So that's why he is also not sure what is going to happen. But he says because it's a very rare thing, in 1 century it has happened, but we have to face it. Now, I would like to know from you reopening of colleges and university by Mr. Nirmal Singh, please.
Good morning to you and learned panelists whom I listened just now and learned about their views. I represent UP Self-Finance College Association, and our state has the largest number of students who are in HEI, higher education institutes in India, followed by Maharashtra. Definitely, it is a challenge for us. It is a challenge for all the students. India is home to over 50,000 HEI and 990 universities, catering to at least 37 million students. Reopening of colleges and universities, today's topic, is a very, very relevant topic and very important topic. I feel schools and educational institutes fall 2020 is a daunting challenge to open them. Indeed, zero risk is not possible. With no vaccine, no effective treatment, and a highly contagious virus, there is no complete risk-free way to reopen, but reopen we must. Since I represent Self-Finance College Association, all the colleges are self-financed. We are not aided by the government. Our salaries, everything is not done by the government. We are grateful to Government of India that they have not declared this as a 0 year. Otherwise, majority of the colleges of self-finance would not have survived this whole year. Now, the challenge is, how should the colleges reopen? There is no easy answer for any of us. Authorities believe flexibility is the key and students are mature enough and they should come to campus for lab work. Yesterday, the Unlock 4 was declared by the government. Now again, they have extended the period that higher education institution should not open till 30th September, and in some flexibility, it can open by 21st of September. Amidst COVID-19 phase, and yes, pandemic, opening of colleges is a matter of great concern for every one of us. The strategy of opening cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach. Multi-faceted approach would be the best. Yesterday, we attended a program in my college where only 2 panelists we were there, and we addressed all the students plus the students of other colleges online. I personally feel, I am running a college also, and since last 2 months we are having online classes. Our students, they are quite satisfied with online classes up till now. But how long this period can be extended, it is uncertain. Few colleges in Maharashtra has adopted an alternate day scheduling. One day these students will come, the second day other students, set of students, for the safety and teacher-student ratio. Students attending colleges will have to adopt a new behavioral pattern. There is no fixed guideline from Government of India how the SOP should be there, what we should follow. The first guidelines which was issued by UGC was on 29th April 2020. And the second guideline for examination academic calendar was issued on 6th July 2020. Still, we have no clarity up till now how the colleges and institutions will reopen. I feel we would have to adopt a 4-module course called pre-semester learning. I feel that the first semester should be totally online, where the second, maybe if the situation improves, as Professor Kamlesh Mishra ji has pointed out, that maybe after January, we can start offline if the things improve. Majority of colleges should adopt and equip themselves for taking online classes for at least next 1 or 2 semesters, or maybe next. Some colleges may think and adopt double shift for students for a staggered schedule. I was reading in a newspaper that Taiwan, which has till now best managed in COVID-19, says every institution should implement best practices, including symptoms screening, thermal screening, contact tracing, use of masks, diagnostic testing, isolation of cases, medical rooms, etc. But as you know, India has its own set of problems. We have a vast population. How to manage that, government should assist, because this is also part of education, is also part of Vikas and the development. We cannot leave 37 million students that, okay, we will carry on forward without doing anything. We have to, government is helping MSMEs, government is helping industries. They should help the colleges, institutions for equip themselves for these changed conditions. I think they should help financially, maybe by satellite, by a common platform. In all, we have to adopt a standard operating procedure laid down by authorities, which should come as early as possible. But as our Supreme Court says, if it comes bread, butter, economy, and life, I think life carries more importance than any other else. I feel we are passing through a very, very difficult phase, and we should have a dual or mixed type of approach at this hour to start the reopening of the colleges and institutions. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Singh, for giving your views. And first of all, Mr. Singh thanked the government not to declaring the 0 year. According to him, if it would have declared 0 year, the government would have declared the 0 year, then all the self-financed colleges and universities would be in a very bad shape. And he says because he is representing the UP Self-Finance Association, College Association, he says that maximum number of higher education institutes are in UP, next is Maharashtra. And he says, if we will not start online education, which according to Mr. Singh, he has already started in his college for last 2 months, the result is good, the students are happy, but whether it is applicable to everywhere, that he is not sure because the infrastructure is not up to the mark. But he says that the government should also consider, when they have considered about the MSMEs and all other structure, other infrastructures or other sectors, why not the colleges? After all, the colleges are also a part and parcel of Vikas. And he says you cannot leave the future of 35 odd million students in lurch without any proper decision. And he says we are still awaiting the proper clear-cut guidelines or SOPs, because according to him, there were only 2 circulars or the guidelines were received from the UGC in month of April and July. But still, we require a clear-cut approach what to do. And according to him, it should be in a staggered manner. Many colleges have done it. Even in Maharashtra, according to Mr. Singh, that there are 2 shifts have started or the alternate days. Similarly, he mentioned about the Taiwan. He said that in Taiwan, there are very strict instructions or SOPs for the colleges to adhere, but it is not that easily possible in India because of our population, because of our conditions. But he is hopeful that something will come so that the colleges or the future of the students will not be in lurch. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, for giving your views about the reopening of colleges and universities. Now I would like to go to our next guest. Our next guest is Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Dr. Agrawal is the former professor of marketing, innovation and management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. Dr. Agrawal is president of Indo-Gulf Marketing Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow, Boston, EFMD Fellow, Paris, and British Council Fellow, London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Dr. Agrawal, on our show. Please unmute yourself. Dr. Agrawal, you have heard what Professor Dr. P. Subramania, Professor Kamlesh Mishra, and Mr. Nirmal Singh has mentioned before you. And they are all very clear that uncertainty is there. Even the unlock 4 has been declared by the government of India yesterday, but it is not clear when the colleges will start running in as pre-COVID era. And according to Professor Subramania, because the infrastructure is not proper, there is lots of problem for the rural online education, which he says it is not fair that the students at the rural area is not getting education while urban are getting that advantage because of the proper infrastructure. But he says that now the colleges and the universities have allowed the staff and the teachers to come from 1st September so that they prepare the college and the curriculum, everything. So by that way, they can start the college offline from 1st of October or thereafter. But Professor Mishra says that the government should have declared this year as a 0 year, because he is not sure that offline education can start even in January. He says either after January or it might be the full academic year will be washed away. But he says that private universities, because they have no other option, they have to start, they have to pay the salaries. So they have already started admissions and they are going online from 1st of September, at least for the urban area. Yes, definitely the rural students will suffer because they are no improper infrastructure and only the 11% of the students have the devices. What Mr. Nirmal Singh says that because he is representing the UP Self-Finance College Association, he says that if the government would have declared 0 year, it would have been disaster for the private colleges because otherwise these colleges will be in a financial mess. And he says that government should consider the colleges as MSMEs and other sectors and give the help as they are giving help to the MSMEs and other sectors. But he says that he has already started his college for last 2 months online and the students are satisfied. But he says for coming to the full education off and online is not easy. It has to be staggered way because he has given example of Taiwan, how strict they are. And he says it's not possible in India. Now we would like to know the reopening of colleges and universities from Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel, and good morning to my fellow panelists who have made my work extremely easy because they have identified the environment much comprehensively, and therefore I do not need to do any of that. So let me begin with my limitation. And my limitation is that I am a student of management. And let me see this thing as a problem which any management person needs to solve. And how do we solve to the solution which is acceptable to all, which is not only acceptable, but which is implementable, and not only it is implementable, but which is also profitable once it is implementable. Now, with this limitation, let me say that we need to analyze this problem in 3 ways. Number one is that we need to analyze the environment in which we are solving the problem. And that particular environment, macro level, has already been analyzed by my fellow panelists. And what I will do in few minutes is to analyze this environment in a little bit focused environment. And that focused environment will be management schools, business schools, because that is where I come from. And that is where I believe I can make some tangible contribution in terms of my suggestions or analysis of problems or in terms of recommendations. So that is number one, that we always take as a management experts or as a management students, that how do we solve this as a problem. The second thing extremely important is that what are the various solutions? What are the expectations of the problem of the people, and what kind of solutions we can be providing them. And then the third will be that pick at least 1 or 2 solutions and then look at those solutions, whether those solutions solve the problem in the most effective way or not. It will never be solved perfectly or completely, but it should at least solve the problem optimally. I'm so sorry that I'm just taking a managerial approach, because that is the only way to handle this problem, which my fellow panelist, Dr. Mishra, very correctly said, doesn't happen every day. It is something which has happened once in a century. But that doesn't mean that such things would not happen again. So therefore, we should now take it as a challenge and find a solution which can also become a protocol for problems similar to that. I hope they do not come, but if they come similar to that or some other situation which is affecting all of us. Now, if we look into this, there seems to be 3 problems we seem to be facing. Number one, people are not still very comfortable in completing the journey from the old normal to the new normal. And this new normal has to stay. It is not something that we are going to say by timeline that it will end in January or February or first year or second year. I think this COVID-19 has opened a new normal, which we are talking about 4 years, 5 years, or maybe in some parts, entire year. In a way, it has changed us for good. So it has not just changed us for a few months or few years, but probably it has changed us fully in some particular respects. The old normal was that we learn better when we go to the school or we go to the colleges. We get a social environment, we get a social interaction with professors, and as a result, we will be learning better. It is my humble suggestion to all of us, whether administration or on the receiving end as students or perhaps their guardians as parents, that please do not look means as the end. End is that they should be properly educated. Means is a campus education, a physical education, or a digital education, or a blended education. Let us not say that just because it is a physical education, the people are learning. Don't forget that for the last so many years, we have been criticizing our education delivery methods. We have been criticizing our education policies. We have been criticizing our colleges and universities that they are not preparing people for the real world. That was the old normal. And that old normal wasn't very good. So why should we also take this new normal to be a bad situation? We should take it as a new normal, which is also opening many opportunities. So this is the first point I would like to submit to all of us, that please quickly complete the journey from the old normal to the new normal as effectively, as quickly, and as happily as possible. Complaining alone will not be good for us, but we should see something good into that. Number 1 point. Number 2 point is that the priorities and preparedness of different stakeholders are different. So therefore, just because we are depending upon them, we say that there is uncertainty. Of course, there is an uncertainty because the goal of the government, the priorities of the government, the preparedness of the government has to be different from the micro institutions like colleges and universities, where the goals, preparations, or resources are different. The government is interested in the whole welfare or wellness of the country, while we are interested in the wellness, and therefore we have to be a little bit more prepared, a little bit more ahead of the government. So instead of being reactive, I think we should be proactive. And instead of being just proactive only, but we should also be action oriented, a little bit ahead of them, ahead of the game. So that is the second point I would like to make, that instead of taking it as an uncertainty, see it as a challenge. See it as an opportunity for us to explore ourselves inside, that what we could do ourselves to make the situation better, given the situation that government has its own priorities and its own preparedness, and that has to be that can never be a full solution to the problems that we are facing, whether it is a self-financed private college, or whether it is a state-financed government university, or it is a private university which is funded on the basis of foundation of 1 or 2 private institutions or people or some other Samaritans. The third point I would like to say is that let us not look at the rural and urban divide only. Let us look at the institutions themselves, the ecospace of the institutions. Now, these institutions, if we look at them, I can very, very quickly identify them in the most easy way. And that easy way is A grade, B grade, C grade institutions. Of course, you can take anything you like. You can take ranking, you can take NAC, you can take any other way of dividing them into A or B or C, because many times we prepare for this kind of ranking and paper over and present plans which not necessarily reflecting the reality within that college or within that particular university. We know all that. And we also know that we are trying to reach there. Sometimes the high ranking is given not necessarily because you are there, but high ranking is given because you are making efforts to be there. So the potential also is taken into consideration. The efforts is also taken. Now, if we look into this particular problem in this way, A, B, or C, then look at, just one sector. And that sector, let us say, business schools. Business schools in general are doing much better as a problem or as a problem solution, the way that other universities or other departments are doing. For instance, just yesterday I finished one online conference in Dubai, which was wholly delivered online, and not a single thing happened in that particular problem. And even though the people were presenting from some villages like Aligarh or suburban areas of Aligarh and Bombay and Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and many other places in India from Maharashtra and others. So there was no issue about that. What does it mean? It means that we have to complete the chasm rather than talk about the chasm and feel a little bit weighed down by the problems because we are not able to distribute it into some pieces and because we are not solving those pieces piece by piece in a way so that we can reach to the larger solution. Now, if we look into these business schools, A grade, B grade, C grade, look at the issue. The issue is preparing the students for the reality, preparing the students for the market, preparing the students for the society, preparing the students for entrepreneurship, for variety of other things that they are expected to do. If we look into them, then A-grade business schools are facing no issues at all, whether it is a faculty, whether it is a college, or whether it is a student. They are not facing too many problems. Before I came to this particular panel discussion today, yesterday I had a meeting with the 10 students of a business school, which is not necessarily A grade, but I was asking them what exactly is happening and why you are having a difficulty. Are you having a difficulty because you are not able to have the physical classes? They said that we are not missing physical classes. We are missing physical contact and social environment, which usually happens when we go to the college, when we go to the faculty. So therefore, we have to see that how do we provide the social environment online. So this is the second issue managerially that we need to solve here. Now, given all those particular situations here, I believe that we need to also create a mechanism for completing this chart between A, B, and C types of institutions, even though whether we take rural as a setting or urban as a setting. Rather than rural-urban thing, I will take it as sectoral approach. And in that sectoral approach, try to solve the problems. So how do we solve the problems? Now that, what are the expectations I have mentioned? That expectations of the students, expectations of the industry. Industry also understands that so long as the students are getting quality education, quality testing, quality assignments, quality faculty, quality learning environment, then why should they care whether it is blended or online or in physical mode? All they require is, are we preparing the students for them or not? Are we preparing assets or are we preparing liabilities? Just because, and then we are giving the name of COVID or this and that. I'm sorry, I'm taking a very positive approach here. I do not want to use COVID-19 as an excuse. I want to use COVID-19 as an opportunity to change ourselves for this next normal or new normal. If we take that particular approach of positiveness or hopefulness or optimism, then there are three things which we need to do as institutions wherever they are. Number one, very, very important is that we really learn how to display, showcase, practice first E. And that first is empathy. We really must be very high on empathy in terms of creating a learning environment between faculty and students, between administrators and faculty, between faculty and faculty. So therefore, empathy, the leaders, I mean, I'm very happy here. I know there are two people personally I know, that is Dr. Mishra and Mr. Singh, that both of them are very, very high on empathy. They are the leaders of empathy, with empathy. And they understand how empathy plays a big role in terms of creating the environment for others. So the first point, which in my opinion is that empathy must be our word, for a keyword, for us to take us out of this particular problem that we are facing within the infrastructure, within the things that we have. That is number one, I would like to say. Students need to be seen why they are facing problems. How do we solve it? Suppose if we are doing a class, physical class of 75 minutes, why not do this particular class online of 90 minutes, but broke it into 4 pieces rather than one class of 75 minutes as a whole. We can have exercise, we can have some kind of interaction, we can listen to them, and we are seeing the faces of everyone on one little screen. So I see that as a very, very good opportunity. So number one, the empathy, very important. The second very important thing is engagement. In this particular country where we live in, unfortunately, we have never understood the meaning of office hours. Office hours is a very, very clear feature of all colleges and universities in the West, whether it is Taiwan, and the name was mentioned. I was very happy to teach there for 6 years. And I know that how Taiwan students and faculty, they meet with each other. So office hours is a very, very big tool of engagement. How do you engage them? Let them know that you are available from this particular time to this particular time, walk in. Then you have my mobile number, you have my WhatsApp number, you have my email number, and I assure you that within 24 hours, I will reply to your message if you are giving me any message within that particular time. This will create that engagement, and that engagement is extremely important for those students. The other engagement could be social engagement. Why do we have to use these online, whether Zoom or anything, only for classes? Why can't we have it for birthdays also? Why can't we having it for some celebrations also? So we can have these kind of things also. As a result, social engagement will also happen, not just one-to-one, but social engagement. So, like, I mean, these days, my family, I'm sorry to, point out as a personal case, is globally distributed. I am in India, my wife is in Singapore, my another son is Singapore, another son is in Dubai. And we are celebrating everything which is happening in our life through these particular meets, and very, very beautifully, I believe. So this is another social engagement that should be done, office hours and social engagement. The third very, very important thing is efficiency. Efficiency means that we should get best out of the resources we have. Use the resources smart, use the resources better, which means that we should plan our sessions very well. We should plan our lecture very well. We should know which material to give before, which material to give after, which exercise to give. For the last 10 years, I am teaching in the best smart university of the world, I will say at this moment. It's called Hamdan Smart University in Dubai. They have been giving this education online for the last almost 10 years. And I'm happy to be a part of that since then. What does it mean? They are not complaining. They are not saying that there is any problem. They are also producing leaders. So I would like to debunk this kind of perception that physical education is solution of everything. I would like to only say this, see this as an opportunity, solve the problem managerially, and go to the people who are affected the most, the customers, the recipients. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Agrawal. And according to Dr. Agrawal, this theory of uncertainty or the rural and urban divide is totally wrong. He says we should take this challenge as a management student or the teacher. We should solve it managerially. We should not take it as only the problem for the education. And he has given examples of business colleges, education institutions, and he says that they are very happy with these types of online education. He has also given example of Dubai, where he is teaching for last 10 years. He says that everyone is very happy. Only I personally want to make one comment on this, Dr. Agrawal. In India, more than 67% population stays in rural area. And when we are not talking of management, we are talking of PUC, after PUC, the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, UG, PG classes, where they don't have the devices. The condition of internet, I can tell you today we are lucky, but otherwise every day, I am facing problem in Mangalore. I have seen the problems even in Delhi. The other day, there was my very senior lawyer was with me, and there was no internet connection, has gone. The last week, our Honorable Vice Chancellor had the same problem. Now tell me, when we are facing the problem in cities, it is very, very difficult situation in rural area, number one. Number two, what he says is, in that way is correct, that if we will only think for the old education mode, which he says that one has to be a physical contact, physical education, we should now come out of that we should accept the new normals, and the new normals are the online education. Whatsoever you want to do the socializing, you can do virtually also. Instead of that, you have to go to the college only for to just meet your friends or have a physical contacts with your teachers and the students. So what Dr. Agrawal is saying is that according to him, we must adopt the new normals. We must not crib about the problems. We must accept it. He said, I'm very positive. I want to tell everyone, don't crib, start online education fully, and see to it you can create the leaders, because he has given examples of many universities which are giving the leaders, even they are teaching for many years online. But these, what he was mentioning is basically the business management institutes, or those students who can afford to have the devices as per their choice, whether it's a laptop or a smartphone. But think of a rural, a family, normal family, where the 4 persons are in the family and one device is available. How they are going to learn? We have to think, because we are in India and we are discussing this problem in India. But your views are also correct that yes, we must, if we will be only considering that this is a problem and we are not going to change ourselves, then we will always have a problem. But if we will change and we will say, no, we will go for the new normals, the problems will come, but they will be again solved. And he has given the example of empathy and the engagement, etc. And he says, why not we should adhere for that? I'm sure that his views will be taken by those universities and the colleges who are on the urban areas, and they should start immediately, take his views and try to start, as our Professor Mishra has also mentioned, that those universities have already started. But really the rural problems will be there, and that should be solved. I'm sure if the proper representation, like Mr. Nirmal Singh being the a senior post holder in the UP Self-Finance College Association and other association will represent to the government, definitely government will be kind enough to listen to them and will come out with some solution. As Professor Mishra has given solution, that why not put up a satellite exclusively for the education for the rural area, and giving some, like Mr. Singh has mentioned, we should give loan or some aid to the private institutions or the students so that they can start their education fully instead of declaring 0 year, which he rebutted. Mr. Singh has also rebutted, although Professor Mishra was advocating for the 0 year for the education. But now I would like to ask simple questions on this. First, I would like to ask Professor Dr. P. Subramania. See, everybody is talking about this learning, e-education and distant learning. And Dr. Subramania, because you are head of a state university and you have colleges not only in the urban but in the rural area also. So we would like to know from you, do you think that this e-learning will shall we shift to e-learning and distance learning in higher education 100% and start, as Dr. Mohan Agrawal says, forget about the thinking about that we will be having the offline education, at least for this academic. Dr. P. Subramania, please.
Yeah, you're 100% right in asking this question, because at this point of uncertainty and confusion, we have to arrive at a meaningful solution. Because as we discuss the problem from different angles by providing a kaleidoscopic view, we should never try to become part of the problem. We should become part of the solution, how to solve it. When we try to arrive at a solution, the solution must be context specific. It is situational and local in nature, rather than a kind of canvas type applicable. It's just like a straitjacket mechanism. No, it cannot happen. Therefore, the solution at this point of time will be certainly the child of the circumstances, I'm very sure. Now, regarding online education or open and distance learning mode, all these things can happen, but it cannot replace the offline teaching learning process. It can only supplement teaching learning process. If you want to make it more realistic, particularly from the context of rural areas, remote part of rural India, and especially from the point of a socio-economically disadvantaged groups, as clearly highlighted by National Education Policy 2020, then I feel that the bandwidth, the internet, electricity, free Wi-Fi, and the devices to access the online education must be provided to the rural people. Some of the governments, they are providing them bicycles. Now I say, no, if you don't have funds now, you stop giving bicycles. You start giving them what you call these devices through which they can access the online distance learning mode or something like that. That's very important because that should be the sense of priority and urgency. And 0 year may not be feasible in the Indian context. As Mr. Nirmal Singh rightly pointed out, the self-financing colleges of UP will be in thick soup because they dominate the entire scenario. They are the backbone of education in UP and something like that. Therefore, we must also understand, appreciate the need for providing them a level playing field. Therefore, declaring 0 year may not be a feasible solution in the Indian context. And what is certain today is online education. What is uncertain today is when we will begin offline face-to-face classes. Therefore, as Professor Kamlesh Mishra ji rightly pointed out, because we don't know when we will be fit enough to offer offline mode of education to our students. Most likely, it may not be possible for this odd semester, first, second, or third, first, third, and fifth semester UG program. Therefore, the next semester, probably January onwards, 2021, it may be hopefully possible. That is what he says. And I will fully endorse the point. And we must get ready for the new normal. It means new normal is nothing but in the post-COVID scenario, or even at this point of time, online teaching, learning, evaluation process will be something in the realistic thing. That is what our ground report says. But as you have rightly pointed out, we must take care of the rural part of India, rural context. Therefore, context first, then the content. That is what my context here. Therefore, from that point of view, we should be ready to face the challenges and should not panic and get ready for this new normal. So work from home and learn from home. Therefore, that will be the visible alternative for the time being.
Context before the content, says Professor Dr. P. Subramania, and he has very clearly says, yes, the new norms, one has to adhere, but government should provide, instead of providing bicycles, they should provide the device, the internet facilities, all other infrastructure which is required for the learning to the rural areas, student especially, so that the level playing field should be there. And he has also mentioned that if the 0 year would have been declared, then it would have been a very, very bad thing for all the self-finance colleges, especially in UP, which is the backbone of in the UP for the education. But he says that we have to adhere for the new norms, and he also acknowledge and accept what Professor Mishra has mentioned, that yes, we have to start the online, and offline is uncertainty whether it will start, although they are hopeful that by January they will be the new offline will also start. But let's see, that we cannot say right now, because every day the cases are increasing. Although we were told that July is the peak or the August will be the peak, we don't know when the peak will come. Now I would like to ask Professor Mishra. Professor Mishra, you said that 0 year. Now I would like to know from you, do you think the decision to reopen colleges and universities in Unlock 4 yesterday, although in a limited way, is correct? Even though the COVID cases are increasing, after all, those teachers and the staff which you are calling, they are also vulnerable. You cannot say only the students are vulnerable, so we are not calling the students. But what about the teachers? What about the staff who are going to come from 1st of September to the colleges?
No, I totally agree that teachers are as vulnerable and staff are as vulnerable as students are. But what I'm seeing now is that it looks like people are beginning to lose the fear of the virus. they have started taking a lot of chances. That doesn't mean that declaring it open is the right decision or wrong decision. I don't think that I'm going to get into that. But I think the decision that only 50% of the people should be there at some time, so that is intended to create the social distance that should be there, that we should not have too many people on the campus at the same time. As far as let me try and clarify the 0-year concept. See, some things we decide to do, some things happen by default. You don't design it, it may end up happening that way, right? Because it's not politically and economically right for us to say that we should go 0-year, because yes, as Nirmal Singh, you also said that a lot of colleges will be in a difficult situation because they are not funded by the government, and I totally agree to that. And if probably 0-year is declared, half of the institutions will shut down, right? But I'm still telling you, without even declaring 0-year, a large number of them will shut down anyway, right? And it's already started happening in many places. So, these kind of situations also bring about a possibility of restructuring the whole sector also, and that will happen. And as Dr. Agarwal was saying, that it's a new normal. I always feel that I think now we will come to the normal. We were living in a very, very abnormal type of a situation. We were running too much, and nature has its own way of telling, okay, stop now. Okay, it's already, you've done too much. So I think my thought on this is that I still feel that unless we have a vaccine, let's not even think about opening in the form that we basically were. The last thing that I want to comment on is, let's try and understand. We are doing online as a compulsion, not because we love it. And let's understand that. The day we have face-to-face possibility there, then we need to see how many people would love to go online. So I'm sure that we should, as an institution, as a university, we should prepare for some element of online through a blended learning model. But I, as a teacher, I don't think that I'm doing justice to a student if I'm only teaching online. I need to feel that student. I need to connect with that student. I want to know what that student is doing, what's happening in their life, how we can make a difference in their life. And that's very, very critical. It is not just about teaching them. It is about making them learn, and making them learn not only subjects, but about life, about experiences, about society, about being a great citizen of the country. How are we going to do those kind of things?
Thank you, Professor Mishra, for giving your views. Now, I would not like to summarize because the time is short. I want to take more things. So I would like to go to Mr. Nirmal Singh. Mr. Nirmal Singh, you have heard what Mr. Mishra has mentioned, and he says that now things have to start. If we have to start, we have to go back as soon as the COVID will over. Otherwise, he says whether it is declared or not declared, the 0-year, we have to accept it and we have to start this thing. But now my point to you is, even if tomorrow the government says, okay, from 1st October, offline education you can start, who will take responsibility? Because I remember we had a program earlier, and when I asked this specific question to Professor Dr. P. Subramania, he says, whatsoever the guidelines will come from the government, we will prepare it and we will pass it to the college. And the ultimate responsibility will be the college. Now, you are being a owner of a college. If there is a guidelines, it says that you have to do these things. And if any student or a teacher found to be positive, who will be responsible? University will say, sorry, we have given you all these guidelines as per the government direction. You are responsible. Students' parents will say, you are responsible. You have started the college. Now, what you will do at that time? Mr. Singh, please unmute yourself. Please unmute.
Sorry. It is a very, very difficult question you have put to me. Exactly, I think that depends upon the situation at that time. But I personally feel that most of the colleges, they are preparing themselves for a 100% sanitized college. Even then, if something drastic happens, morally, yes, we would try to help out the affected students or affected faculty. But there are certain things, even in the insurance also, it is written act of God. And I think pandemic is an act of God. Even in certain cases, insurance also does not compensate for the act of God. So I personally feel we should not hope for that, but we should try our best to follow the SOP procedures, standard operating procedures in our colleges. And that's what we are also guiding to all the colleges, that they should follow that. But as Professor Mishra ji has said, that I agree fully with him that offline education has its own importance, especially in the minds and framework of the Indian students. Online education, though, as P. Subramania ji has mentioned about the NEP 2020, which is in the initiation of implementation. Maybe in the future, we would drift towards that type of education. We will be having a blend of education where the laptop and connection is what is required. And maybe the sky is the limit for learning there. But that time will tell. But yes, as Professor Mohan Lal Agarwal ji has also mentioned, we should see it as an opportunity, a new normal. And that is what we should focus for that also.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singh. Now I'm coming to Dr. Agarwal. Only my request is please be brief because our time is very short. Otherwise, I have to stop you. Again, I am coming to the same point about the e-learning. Dr. Mohan Agarwal, I know that you have spent your maximum time abroad. But in India, if you go to the rural areas, there is no power. There is no internet. And do you think with the poor network and lack of resources, still the online education is possible for every student? Or shall we declare, as Professor Mishra says, 0 year for the rural area students and only the urban area students will get the online education? We say, sorry, you are category 3 or category 4 students. We are not going to teach you this year. Next year we will see. Okay, and only we will teach the urban students. Do you mean that we should take this as an opportunity to teach only the urban area persons and say goodbye or say bye-bye this year to the rural area students? What do you say about this, Dr. Agarwal?
Yeah,
very short.
Very short, very quickly. Number one, I believe that the rural technology is also very getting better, and therefore we should not see it as an old thing. We have got fibers and all those things going there also. Number two, I would like to say that we should try to give them devices and also data packages. Not only devices, but data packages. And we can align with many institutions who have got this kind of facility and capacity and broadband available. Number three, declaring anything 0 is not going to solve the problem. It will create many more problems for the students and their parents. And number 4, I would like to say that please be ready for a blended education. And in this blended education, what should be the content of physical and what should be the content of online, that let us leave it to the context. Let us leave it to the colleges, but be ready in general that we are going to have a blended education.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Agarwal, to give the brief answer. And yes, you are right that now we have to go for the blended education. So today you have seen the experts, the learned persons from all the fields of the education, 2 vice chancellors, 1 owner of a very prestigious education institution and representing the UP Self-Finance College Association, and 1 academician who has vast knowledge of academic. They have given their views and their views are very clear. We should go for the new normal. We should not have any reservations. We must try to adjust. Yes, difficulties are there. We must face it. And they all want that government should take proactive action and try to solve the problem about the internet and other things. And they say that the time will definitely come when we will also have offline education, and there will be a blend of education. Thank you very much for giving such type of heavy dose of views to all of you. And today's program, which was live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring every day a new topic, a current topic, a very, very important topic. And tomorrow the topic is effect of moratorium on banks and industries. Yes, tomorrow Supreme Court is going to hear this thing, because we know that tomorrow, or not, Supreme Court is going to hear on 1st, but 31st is the last day when the bank moratorium is going to end. What is going to happen? If they will extend, what will be the effect on banks? If they will not extend, what is going to happen on industry? And our panelists are Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, former chairman, Corporation Bank of India. We have Advocate Ramesh Kumar Sharma from Mathura. We have Mr. Anil Sharma, Director, Bridge Utkal Private Limited, New Delhi. We have Mr. Arun K. Agarwal, Director, Vimal Organic Limited, Ghaziabad. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, all our guests, Professor Dr. P. Subramania, Professor Kamlesh Mishra, Mr. Nirmal Singh, and Dr. Mohan Agrawal for joining and giving such a heavy dose of the education. You have educated all of us about the reopening of colleges and university. And thank you, viewers, for viewing our program. Thanks a lot.